There are places in this world that make shivers run down your spine and make you wonder what may be hidden in the sometimes empty spaces. These places are creepy, haunted, and can be found in your hometown.
Inside Evergreen Cemetery off Town Hill Road sits a grave that was designed by its occupant to prevent him from experiencing a relatively common fear in the 18th and 19th centuries. Taphophobia, the fear of being buried alive, led to the practice of graves being equipped with bells in case the person woke up after being interred. This was due to a condition that came to be known as Lazarus syndrome, where the body circulation would return even after failed attempts at resuscitation. Scratch marks were often found on the inside of coffin lids after a body was exhumed. Dr. Timothy Smith was so fearful of being buried alive that he went on to design a special grave that would allow him to signal visitors in the event that he came to and needed rescue. He also built a set of stairs underneath a capstone beside the burial mound and a secret vault where his wife was later laid to rest. On Halloween of 1893, Dr. Smith died, and his son made the journey from Middlebury to New Haven to supervise the grave's construction. In the end, his lifelong dread never came to fruition. Tourists can still visit the grave, but due to condensation, the glass in the center of the marker has become muggy and moldy. However, it is rumored that if you visit at night with a high-powered flashlight, you can see his decomposing body looking right back at you. Constructed by a local pioneer, Christopher William Crawley in 1885, the double-story late Victorian mansion has been labeled Australia's most haunted house. Christopher William Crawley acquired the land in 1876 and spent his first years struggling to maintain it until the Great Southern Railway line opened in 1878 and his fortunes changed. After obtaining a license, he built the Railway Hotel across from the bustling station. As his wealth increased, he made plans to build a house to further symbolize his own growing importance and status. Work began in 1884, finishing in 1885. As hoped, the home became the ultimate status symbol. It was the center of local power and sat overlooking the land. However, despite its grandeur, it stayed as a farmland, to which Christopher Crawley still lent a hand. He would go on to have 7 children, passing away in 1910 at the age of 69. His wife passed in 1933 at the age of 92. The family fully vacated in 1948. It is said that Miss Crawley still haunts the house, grieving and unsettled, having lived a sheltered life after her husband's death. Tales are also told of a maid who fell to her death from the home's balcony, a former caretaker who was murdered in the house, and a baby who was dropped down the stairs in the main house, but no accounts or even names are given. Rather, they are explanations for the strange lights and disembodied sounds that have been experienced by the current owners, as well as guests who have tried to stay overnight. On New York's East River lies a pair of twin islands with a history of helping those in need. Until 1885, the islands were uninhabited, a domain for the city's wild and plant life. As typhus, tuberculosis, yellow fever, and smallpox spread throughout the country, the city purchased the island to establish the Riverside Hospital to help treat and isolate victims of the diseases. The most famous patient in residence was known as Typhoid Mary, the United States' first asymptomatic carrier of the typhoid bacteria. She was quarantined in 1907 after it was discovered that 7 of the 8 families that employed her as a cook experienced an outbreak of the typhoid fever. Tests confirmed that she did in fact carry the virus, but remained in perfect health. She was released in 1910 with explicit warnings not to pursue her old position, a warning she would ignore. She was forcibly returned to North Brother Island in 1910 after many held positions that left typhoid victims in her wake. She remained on the island until her death from pneumonia in 1938, still believing herself to be unfairly detained. It would later go on to house veterans returning from World War II and even become a center to treat adolescent heroin addicts in the 1950s until its closure in the 1960s. The island is now off-limits to visitors, a sanctuary for herons and other shorebirds established by the city. The buildings themselves are deteriorating, in danger of collapse, and losing their battle with local vegetation. In 2009, it was featured in the television series Life After People on the History Channel, used as an example of what cities would look like 45 years after humans had gone. In a city known for its history and beauty, one would probably never imagine that there was a trio of cabarets dedicated to surrealism and depictions of both heaven and hell. Hell's Cafe, known as Cabaret de l'Enfer, was founded in 1892 by Antonin Alexander, conveniently located in the red light district, Pigalle, the neighborhood of the Moulin Rouge. One would be greeted at the door by a man dressed in a devil costume with the saying, "Enter and be damned," while walking through the giant head of a bug-eyed devil. They were led to a table by a waiter dressed as a devil into a scene straight from hell, with plaster outlines of lost souls writhing in agony. A popular drink was 3 coffee spiked with cognac, called out as 3 seething bumpers of molten sins with a dash of brimstone intensifier. It operated until the mid-20th century when it was demolished to make way for a one-stop shop establishment. All that currently exists are photos and testimony from old patrons. Located in the Recoleta neighborhood of Buenos Aires, La Recoleta Cemetery is home to between 4,600 and 6,400 tombs, and has been hailed the most beautiful and one of the world's best cemeteries by the BBC and CNN. The cemetery was built in 1732 on 14 acres of land, becoming the city's first public cemetery in 1822. The layout was designed by a French engineer, Prospero Catalan, who also helped design the Buenos Aires Metropolitan Cathedral. The cemetery is famous for its marble mausoleums decorated with statues, as well as its architectural styles, such as Art Deco, Art Nouveau, Baroque, and Neo-Gothic, combined with Masonic symbols and religious iconography. 90 of these tombs are currently listed as National Historical Monuments. It is also famous for its inhabitants, including Eva Perón, the First Lady of Argentina, Adolfo Caceres, a fiction writer and journalist, and Armando Bo, an actor and film director. Like most places where the dead are buried, ghost stories continue to circulate around La Recoleta, some going as far as impacting the lives of the city's inhabitants. In 1925, a woman by the name of Luz Maria Garcia Veloso passed away after succumbing to leukemia and was interred in La Recoleta, her tomb adorned with a marble statue bearing her likeness. Years passed, and one night, as a man was going to hang out with some of his friends, he came across what he described as a beautiful woman and took her to get some hot chocolate at a local cafe. During this time, he received a phone call that startled the woman, causing her to spill some of the drink onto his jacket. He would later offer that same jacket for her to wear when he saw that she was cold. He dropped her off at home and returned the next day to reclaim the item. At the door, he was greeted by an older woman who brought him inside and explained that the woman he met had actually died in 1925 at the age of 15. She would also explain that she was buried at the cemetery and that he was not the first one to come calling. Some days would pass, but he could not forget the girl he had met. He went to the cemetery, laid next to her effigy, and committed suicide. Another speaks of a former caretaker and gravedigger who worked in the cemetery for over 29 years. He saved his money to buy himself a burial plot and to have a statue put in his tomb. When everything was completed, he went home and took his own life. It is said that you can still hear his keys as he walks the grounds, forever tending to his duty. Lastly, a horrifying story of a woman having been buried alive. Rufina Campceres was only 19 years old when she collapsed and was pronounced dead in 1902. She was then buried in the family tomb in La Recoleta. However, a few days went by and a caretaker noticed that her coffin had been moved and the family was contacted. After consent was given, the coffin was opened and the family received a shock. The girl's face, hands, and even the coffin lid were covered in blood. The lid was also covered in scratch marks, showing that she had awoken some time after she was interred and tried to claw her way out. It became known that Rufina's mother gave her a tranquilizer so she could have relations with Rufina's boyfriend, and it is suspected that she gave her an overdose the night that she died. A year later, a separate tomb was built with a statue bearing Rufina's likeness, with the statue's hand on the door handle, as if she was finally able to leave.
And that's all the time we have left for this episode of Creepy and Haunted Places. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. And the next time you get the urge to set foot in a creepy or haunted place, don't forget to bring a candle.